Welcome back to the Perfect Season podcast. This is the super amazing podcast that talks about everything, all things football related, and absolutely nothing to do with milk and cookies. My name is Alex. We have Frankie. We have a newcomer, Lucas. Lucas, you don't have to mute yourself, bud. This is free range.
Well, I don't want the fans, screw up your beautiful intro, Alex.
Well, the fans have not
It,
seen us in what, a year and a half?
I'm talking about my
it
ceiling fan,
has
Alex.
been, it has been. I feel like so much has happened in a year and a half. Were the Chiefs the reigning Super Bowl champions the last time we recorded this?
I couldn't even. I mean, if you figure the Chiefs have won 2 years straight, I think it's a safe assumption to say that the Chiefs won their first of the two Super Bowls the last time we posted a video.
Wow.
It's been a minute. It's been a minute. But you know what? We're not going to worry about that. We're back with the revival. This is the comeback tour. This is everything all in
Yes.
between. And we're starting off with a heavy topic. We're going to be talking about the
It's gonna be big.
Heisman. This is a big one. This is a big one. This one's fresh. There's lots of open wounds, open scars, open anything you want to talk about. There you go. There you go. So before we get into the takes about the Heisman, who should have won, who shouldn't have won, who should have gotten ninth place in the Heisman voting, let's just go over the title, the definition of a Heisman winner. So the Heisman belongs to an outstanding performance which best exhibits the pursuit of excellence with integrity. Winners epitomize great ability combined with diligence, perseverance, and hard work. That is the words associated with the Heisman. So not really going to worry about the initial of that. So let's just go into the top five. So this is set in stone. This is the top five in terms of voting. This is what happened. So obviously we already know Travis Hunter won the Heisman. He received 2,231 points. Ashton Jeanty, Boise State, 2017. Dillon Gabriel finished with third with 516. Cam Ward of Miami, fourth, 229. And I was not expecting this. I looked this up earlier. I did not expect Cam Scadaboo of Arizona State University to get 179 and be fifth.
Really?
Yeah, he was fifth. I did
I,
not
I
I'm
didn't
not
see
expect
that.
it.
surprised
That's
about that.
crazy.
I mean, he might be the best running. He might be outside of Ashton Jenney, the best running back in the country right now.
And Frankie,
100%.
that's a great thing that you just mentioned because I have a whole spiel about who should be number five and as well as where Cam Scadaboo should be ranked. So that's a great point right there. So again, we have the top two. A lot of the debate is pretty much between Ashton Jeanty and Travis Hunter. 99% of people think it's one or the other. If they think it's outside, they're an extremely biased fan that loves their team. I mean, that's pretty much how it is. So we're gonna play.
Miami fans.
Yeah, and Miami fans, pretty much.
Well,
Miami fans.
there was a time I thought Dillon Gabriel should have gotten it. I mean, there was a time when I felt like Dillon Gabriel was the best player in the country. When I saw Oregon beat Ohio State and how composed he looked in that second half and that fourth quarter, I felt like he could win the Heisman Trophy. So it kind of really didn't become that two-horse race because when Ashton Jenney first burst onto the scene this year, it was like, well, who is this guy? We didn't really see a lot of Boise State this year, but you tuned into their games after you eventually knew who Ashton Jenney was.
No, I mean exactly. I mean, Oregon in their first real game plays up against Boise State. Everybody thinks it's going to be a blowout, 3+ touchdown win. No, it wasn't. It was 37 to 33, 34. I mean, it was a 3-4 point game the entire time. I mean, Boise State came to play. And not only that, but they really showed who their workhorse was, and that is Ashton Jeanty. So again, funny thing you mentioned about Dillon Gabriel, I felt the exact same way going into the first part of the season and even towards the end of it, because a lot of quarterbacks started to fall. Dillon Gabriel looked like the best quarterback on the in NCAA, and I still kind of feel it to a certain extent. But let's see if you could guess Dillon Gabriel's stats from these four players. I'm going to give you four players. I'm going to give you everything about them, their completions, their completion percentage, their yards, their touchdowns, interceptions, and their quarterback ranking. And you both are going to tell me who is Dillon Gabriel. Okay.
This will be fun.
This is
Okay.
going to be a good one. So
I
the
always
first,
love these.
so the first quarterback at 293 completions for 435 attempts, a 67.4% completion percentage, 4,123 yards, 36 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, was first in quarterback ranking at 88.1. All right, so that's your first quarterback. Your second quarterback, 337 completed passes for 454, 74.2% completion, 3,920 yards, 35 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 16th in quarterback ranking at 78.3. Third quarterback, 297 completions, 406 attempts, 73.2% completion, 3,558 yards, 28 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, finished second in quarterback ranking at 86.5. And your final quarterback, 202 completions for 287 attempts, 70.4% completion percentage, 2,827 yards, 27 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and finished third in quarterback ranking at 85.7. So who do you guys think was Dylan Gabriel?
I'm gonna go with
It's quarterback 3, baby.
Quarterback 3?
It's quarterback 3. I know it.
I'm
100%.
gonna go quarterback 4.
Quarterback 4. Quarterback 4. All right. So quarterback 1 was Cam Ward.
Okay.
Quarterback 2 was Shedeur Sanders. So quarterback 3
Really?
and quarterback 4, one of them is Dylan Gabriel. Lucas, you guessed correctly. Quarterback 3 was Dylan Gabriel, finished second in quarterback ranking. Now, could you guys tell me who quarterback number 4 was?
I'm
Read me
gonna
the stats again.
say the stats again.
202 completions for 287 attempts, 70.4% completion percentage, 2,827 yards, 27 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and finished third at 85.7.
Oh, which quarterback do I think this is gonna be?
It's
Riley
not
Leonard.
Riley Leonard, okay?
I was gonna say Riley Leonard too. This is BS, man.
All right, I'll tell you what. It is not Riley Leonard. I'll give you a second chance. You got to really dig deep. This is not somebody you expected.
Not somebody you expect.
Yes.
Jalen Milroe.
Jalen Milroe. Okay. Lucas?
Well, no, it's not Carson Beck. He had way more interceptions.
Yes, he had a lot more.
Jeez.
What do you think?
Actually, I feel like I have.
Can I get a conference? Can I get a
That's probably
conference?
going to be right.
I can give you a conference. Give me 1 second. You are looking at the Big Ten.
The Big Ten.
It's gonna be Will Howard.
Will Howard,
Will Howard,
okay.
isn't it?
Frankie, do you want to change your answer?
Do I want to change my answer? Yeah, because I guess Jalen Milroe. I'm gonna say, excuse me. I'm gonna say Drew Aller.
Drew Aller, Penn State. All right.
Ooh,
Well,
that's
you
a good
both are
choice, too.
still wrong. Lucas,
Both are-
you're
Really?
you're gonna suffer from this one. This is from the University of Indiana, the Hoosiers.
Oh my
Curtis Rourke.
gosh! Are you kidding me?
Jeez, off my
Okay,
radar
okay.
completely. That's insane.
I guessed his opposition, his counterpart tomorrow night. So I was close on the first guess.
I mean, yeah, no kidding. But yes, it was
Against
Curtis.
the bottom feeders of the Big Ten, not surprising.
But the thing is, that you say bottom feeder. Indiana finished
What?
11-1.
Yes, but the bottom feeders of the Big Ten, weak.
You can
weaker
only beat the teams that are on your schedule.
100%. I don't disagree, but we're talking about stats here.
We are talking about
The
stats.
stats do not lie.
Well,
So,
maybe because okay, but it's not his fault that Indiana was up like 42-0 by halftime. He'd have to throw the
100%.
times.
Agreed.
They're a fantastic team, but in terms of playoff, I don't know. But that's completely besides the point. We're talking about
Are you saying that Indiana should not be in the college football playoff?
No. I'm just saying that they're in for a rude awakening.
Who's Indiana?
I totally agree.
100%.
Listen,
They 100% are 100% deserving and have to be consistent as a Florida State.
Oh, there he is.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened right there. My computer just decided to reset on that. Okay, I'm sorry. Continue.
Had an ESPN Plus type thing that just happened, like in the crosstown shootout this past Saturday. The ESPN Plus broadcast kept fading to black. I mean, you would have thought the Metallica was performing their song "Fade to Black." So there you go.
So anyway, yes, I'm sorry about that. It's been a long time since my computer's been turned on, so sometimes it might have a bit of an issue. But okay, so now you understand where Dylan Gabriel stands on that. Not saying his stats are bad, but when you look at his stats in comparison to other quarterbacks of the same caliber, in my honest opinion, Dylan Gabriel should not have been third in the Heisman rankings. I do not believe that he should have finished as high as he did because, we always go back to the Heisman debate of it is the best player in the entire country, but it's also as well as their achievements. So again, a little bit of a disclaimer going for it. Look at Genty. Do you think Boise State could have finished 12-1 conference winners if they did not have him on his team?
Not a chance.
100% no.
Do you even think that they would have made a bowl game?
Can you name one player on Boise State besides Ashton Jenny?
Madsen Maddox, the quarterback.
I cannot.
Well,
The quarterback, if you say his name, I 100% remember it, but I can't get off the top of my head.
do you even know? Do you even know Boise State's head coach? I actually do. I'm asking like, do you know Boise State's head coach? What his
No,
name is?
no,
Wow,
Nope.
his name is Spencer Danielson, which I never would have guessed.
exactly. But that's what I
And
mean
I'm almost
is when you
sure
have a
Chris Peterson was the head coach.
when you have a player that is the face of an entire team to the point that everybody only knows that player unless you're from Idaho, unless you're a Boise
Mhm.
State fan, that should go to show you just how significant this guy is. Now, again, not saying Dylan Gabriel is significant, but if they did not have Dylan Gabriel, if they had a Carson Beck type player, which is he's good, he's not great. Do you think Oregon would have had
Yep.
some amount of their success?
Would if Carson Beck were the quarterback of Oregon, do I think that they would still be where they are right now?
Carson Beck or a Carson Beck equivalent? Yes.
They would have dropped at least 2 games.
10-2, 11
At
and
least 2
1,
games.
9-3 at the worst.
Well, yeah, I just think because Dylan Gabriel, I mean that system that he's in, Oregon's offense. I mean, as the quarterback, all you have to do is not make mistakes,
That's
and
fair,
you're gonna win games.
of course.
But Carson Beck might be the most erratic quarterback that there is in college football.
Yep.
He
I
makes
don't know.
he makes these great throws, and then he makes these throws to make you want to pull your hair out if you're a Georgia fan.
No, I completely agree. I watched the Georgia Tech game on an airplane, and I watched that game happen live, and I'm just like, this guy's horrible. I mean, I can't even watch this guy play. Like, I want to throw up.
It's a miracle that they won that game, to be honest.
They should not
It's
have won.
100% Georgia Tech.
That game.
Georgia Tech should have won that hands down.
It's a miracle that Georgia. It's a miracle that Georgia was in the Alabama game. It's a miracle that Georgia, quite frankly, won the SEC championship.
Mm-hmm. No kidding. No kidding. Again, that just proves just how weak the SEC is this year compared to years past. But anyway, that's the point. So my point in being is that Oregon is a great team. They've been a great team. Last year, I mean, they finished 11 and 1. They were already great. A lot of their pieces returned. They didn't lose much. So in terms of that standout, team captain, like I am who I am type player, I feel like there was better quarterbacks than Dylan Gabriel this year. And that was just a few. That was just a few of the ones that I found. These are just guys. Like, am I saying that Shedeur Sanders is better than Dylan Gabriel? No, not at all. Absolutely not. Now, am I saying that Curtis Rourke is better than Dylan Gabriel? No, I think Indiana. I agree with Lucas. I think Indiana had an easier schedule than most teams in a Power Four conference had. But I'm going to be a little bit biased because I know Lucas knows that I am a University of Miami fan as well as an FSU fan. Cam Ward came into the university.
Be a fan of both teams? Wait, hold on. How can you be a fan of both teams?
Well, let's see. I grew up a UM fan. My dad's side of the family is from Miami, so I'm a Dolphins fan. And I went to Florida State. But of course, when it comes to FSU playing Miami, who am I going to root for, Lucas? The Seminoles, any day of the week, absolutely. But what I'm saying,
even though you wore a Miami hoodie to one of the games, but
that's not the point. It's not the point. But anyway, so the point that I'm having is, as somebody that's seen football, an ACC guy, Frankie, you're a Clemson, you're a Cincinnati guy, so you know the ACC just as much as I do. Miami, the last couple of years since the 2017 season, dude, they've been average. They've been 5-7 to 7-5 every single year. They always had so much hype around them, and then they fall flat, right?
Yep.
That's a very fair assessment. Now look at Cam Ward. Look at what Cam Ward has done to the University of Miami, the Hurricanes, since he's been a part of it. You know what? Dude, at one point, they were looking like they were competing for the national championship. I mean, they were undefeated 8-0. That you lose to Georgia Tech, which is a great Georgia Tech team. You lose the last season of the game against Syracuse. You fall to 10-2. But Cam Ward has been more of a standout player for the University of Miami than I feel Dylan Gabriel was for the University of Oregon. So therefore,
that's fair.
And now, again, do I think that Cam Ward should have won the Heisman Trophy? No, that is not what I'm arguing. But do I feel that Cam Ward maybe should have been considered a little bit more than Dylan Gabriel? Yeah, maybe put Cam Ward at 4 and put 100%. Dylan Gabriel at 5. That's what I'm looking at right there.
But do we think then it goes back to if you're on a team like Dylan Gabriel is the quarterback of the number 1 team in the country, do we think that has something to do with where you end up in the Heisman voting?
I think your team's overall
100%.
success definitely has some sway. I'm obviously, I mean, if Ashton Genty was a part of a 5-7 Boise State team, do I think that he should be considered for Heisman? No, because why would you be considering a guy that's 5-7? You know, um, and the same thing can be said about
Your team
Travis.
narrative goes a long way.
It,
100%. Travis Hunter, if he didn't go from 4-8 to 9-3, I don't think he would be as talked about and
it,
obviously winning the Heisman.
exactly, and that's the thing is Travis Hunter, who won the Heisman, was 9-3. They missed the playoffs, and yet we're heralding him as if he was this game changer player. Do I think that he was a great
Well,
But at
player?
LSU,
Yeah,
LSU missed
but
the
he was
playoffs.
a game changing player, and I can say that from experience. I was at the Cincinnati Colorado game, and let me tell you, to watch Travis Hunter play at a high level on both sides of the ball. Do you know how hard that is to do? I mean, you guys, I mean, Florida State fans. Alex, you went to Florida State. Lucas, did you go to Florida State? I don't think I asked you this before.
I did.
he
You did?
did.
Okay, so you both went to Florida. You both went to Florida State. Who's Florida State's most famous alum when it comes to football?
Deion Sanders.
Thank you. And Deion Sanders was a two-way player.
Yes, he
And
was.
we have not seen a two-way player the caliber of Deion Sanders until Travis Hunter.
Yeah,
And
no,
so
I agree.
when you have an opportunity, and I saw him play 130 snaps against the Bearcats. He caught a touchdown. He was great in man coverage in that game. When you have a player perform at a high level on two sides of the ball, when you're playing full speed, 130 plus snaps a game, and he's up for the Heisman. That's where my vote goes.
I mean, yes, absolutely. On a surface perspective, when you look at somebody that's able to play competitively on both sides of the ball, take very minimal breaks, yeah, I mean, he should totally be considered. I mean, Travis Hunter for sure earned a top five. He earned top three in my Heisman voting. I mean, I'll give a little bit of a leak. I put him at two. I think he was a great
Wait,
player.
do you have an official vote for the Heisman?
I didn't vote for it, but I voted my personal top five. So
Oh, okay.
I mean, your opinion's very important, Alex.
When do you have a vote for the Heisman Trophy?
I gotta tell you guys something. I'm sorry. So let's put a pin in that Travis Hunter discussion of being a two-way player. Now let's go to the number 5 spot in Cam Scatterboom. So stats that I'm going to provide for you, I'm going to give it a little bit of a disclaimer. This is not against every running back. This is against the top 5 running backs in terms of rushing yards. Because comparing him to the rest of the pack, I don't think is fair. We need to compare him to the best of the best. So with that being said, Cam Scatterboom was 5th in rushing yards for the entire NCAA. That's a great achievement. That's amazing. He was 5th. That's good. He was the second worst yards per rush average of those in the top 5. I think he averaged 6 on the dot. The worst
which is still pretty good.
Which is still fantastic.
That's
yes,
really good.
But again, the lowest was 5.9. In first place, we already know who was first at 7.7 yards per carry.
It's amazing to think about.
He was the second lowest touchdown scorer among rushing running backs. He scored 19. 19 is fantastic. He was the 4th highest of the top 5. He was first in receiving yards at 506, and he was tied for most receiving touchdowns at 3. Second place in receiving yards, couldn't tell you the name, forgot. I think it's the UCF guy. He had about 300. So with that being said, if we're including all, couldn't tell you. Genuinely,
I know who you're talking about. RJ Harvey.
There you go. Thank you. And if we're including rushing and receiving yards, Cam Scatterboom would have finished third in total yards behind Ashton Genty and Omarion Hampton of the University of North Carolina. Okay. The point being made is that even though Cam Scatterboom was 5th in Heisman, he was the 3rd best running back in his position. And we're talking about running backs. We're talking about he was 3rd in running backs. We're not talking about the other quarterbacks, the Penn State tight end, any other position, defensive players. So why should somebody that was not even top 2 at their position be top 5 in the Heisman? Like I said, he wasn't top 2 in his position. He was top 3. There was somebody that was not only above him, but in terms of all-purpose yards, Omarion Hampton was about 300 yards higher than Cam Scatterboom with the same amount of playing time. So why is he receiving more attention than UNC? Well, I'll tell you, ASU finished 10-2. They won their conference championship. They are in the playoffs. UNC, I couldn't even tell you what UNC's record is.
Only if they got
Well,
dropped
I mean, now that
by
we're in the Bill,
JMU.
I mean, they're in the Bill Belichick era, so they're technically 0-0 if you want to throw out records.
Yeah, and that's a fair point. But in terms of their record that they scored last year, I personally couldn't even tell you if they made a bowl game. Um, so that just goes to show you that
I don't know.
that players that are, I mean, this is known. You're gonna get, if you get media attention, you're gonna get Heisman attention. If Omarion Hampton
Exactly.
and UNC was 10-2 and won the ACC, do I think that they may have received more attention than Cam Scattergood in terms of Heisman voting? Absolutely. I think Omarion Hampton would have been fifth if it was on the same playing field, same record, same everything, same prestige and accomplishments.
You know what the crazy thing is? Arizona State was picked to finish 16th out of 16 teams in the Big 12, and they won the Big 12 championship.
I know, and it's impressive. I mean,
And got the bye, which is
and
insane.
they have a bye, which do they? Yes, they do.
Yeah, they do.
Yes.
Yeah, they kicked Clemson out. Well, Clemson wasn't going to get a bye week anyway, but yeah.
And Cascadaboo, and I know this because I saw him up close. They played Cincinnati here in the Queen City. That guy runs so hard. He's extremely physical. I mean, he's not even, I mean, I think he's what, 5'9". He kind of reminds you a little bit of a Darren Sproles, maybe a Reggie Bush kind of back. He's not where the height doesn't really come into play, but he's big, he's strong, he's got a huge upper body. He runs through contact. I mean, he's a fantastic running back. Crazy thing, Cincinnati held him to 75 yards rushing.
No, I'm in complete. I completely agree. I mean, look, dude, I live miles away from the University of Arizona campus. I went to the Duel in the Desert game with U of A against ASU. I know what Cam Scattergood is capable of. He is a fantastic player. He looks like a more muscly Christian McCaffrey, in my honest opinion. He's going to do great things in the NFL, but he does not have the stats or the individual prestige to elevate a team as much as what he did. ASU was a great team all around. Cam Scattergood is a great player, but he is just not of the same kind of carrying the team on his back as I feel that Omarion Hampton was with UNC. Even though, again, UNC couldn't even tell you what they did. Okay.
Lose very often.
They did lose a lot. I know that. I don't think I saw them win very much. So, gentlemen, I think it's finally time to get into the meat of the discussion. Ashton Jeanty versus Travis Hunter.
I still say Travis Hunter, and believe me, I struggle with this. But when you have a player who performed at the level he played at on both sides of the ball, and it's so rare, and it kind of is unfair because any other season, Ashton Jeanty would have won the Heisman in a landslide. Mm-hmm. It would have been like when Joe Burrow won it in 2019. But I have to go with Travis Hunter because when you have a rare dual player that can play on both sides of the ball, it makes it easy for me.
Lucas?
It's got to be Ashton Jeanty. And he's just like the stat of yards after contact, something like an absurd amount after contact. And just like that's having the box stacked against you against every single team. Now, obviously against Oregon, I feel like that's really when he burst onto the scene. They weren't really aware of that. He still ran, I think, 179 yards in Oregon.
I actually have that stat line for you.
Yeah, I looked this up. Oregon's the 13th ranked total defense too. So it's a very strong defense.
But also remember, Ashton Jeanty, we didn't really know who he was until a few weeks into this season. We knew who Travis Hunter was, so he essentially already had a leg up in the Heisman race.
True.
But so that's why for me, and you watched the first game of the season and you understood the hype surrounding Travis Hunter. So that's another reason why for me, he got my vote.
I mean, Hunter definitely had the platform going into it. We knew who he was. Everybody had him on his radar. Everybody was already scheming against him. It makes complete sense. But I also feel as if it should be mentioned that Ashton Jeanty was not a name that we knew beginning of August. Go in terms of us as just college football fans. Obviously, if you're a Boise State fan, you're obviously going to know who Ashton Jeanty is. But coming into it, yeah, nobody knew who he was. He was just a running back in a blue jersey on a blue field, like most Boise State players are. But again, I feel like he had to work more to be recognized than Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter was a 5-star prospect. He went to a Division II school to go play with Deion Sanders. He then left, went to Colorado with Deion Sanders. He was already on everybody's radar. Everybody knew who Travis Hunter was since before he even made his college debut.
I mean, there are
Part of it is
there are players that are going to be like that at certain points. Go ahead, Lucas.
it's just like it's hard to imagine Travis Hunter without Coach Prime, and just that level of media attention going towards you. It's really hard to overcome, especially in the eyes of voters. I don't know all the criteria that determines a Heisman voter, but it's hard to imagine that's not really present in their minds when they're voting.
And Lucas, you bring up a great point. I mean, obviously, if you are a winning team in a winning program, you're going to get media attention. You're going to get the attention of the Heisman voters. Travis Hunter has ingrained himself into everybody's brain for the last 2 years minimum. And again, Ashton Jeanty has not even been a name over the last, 4.5, 5 months? More people have had to find out who this guy is because of his program. He plays in the Mountain West. That's a non-power four conference to then go and talk about Travis Hunter, who again, everybody's been talking about. Oh, he plays both sides of the ball. We haven't seen that in so long. Yeah, that's fine. I completely agree. Seeing a dual threat, playing offense, playing defense type of player is definitely a once in a generation type of guy, especially with how well he played it. But it's very hard to look at that and say, yeah, I think Travis Hunter should win when you look at what Jeanty did for stats, with what he did for Boise State. I mean, I think a lot of people are missing that he was like 160 yards away from breaking the NCAA record.
True.
I mean, that's one game. One game. He could still break it technically because of the playoffs. Yeah, exactly. He could still break it going into the playoffs. I mean, obviously in the second round because, they have the bye. He could still break that record. And
he has a solid chance to, because I looked up the rankings for the run defenses going into the playoff, and SMU and Penn State, 7th and 10th most allowed yards.
There you go. I mean that's. Yeah. I think Jeanty will break it.
I agree with you, Lucas. Whoever plays Boise State, they're going to be in for a rude awakening.
Exactly, I completely agree. So now let's.
Oregon saw it, almost saw it.
Oregon was not expecting in the beginning. I mean, and who could? I mean, like that's why Jeanty did as well as what he is, because nobody would have expected him to perform as well as what he did. But let's go into the stats. Ashton Jeanty, 344 rushing attempts, 2,497 rushing yards, 7.3 yards per carry. 29 rushing touchdowns, 20 receptions, 116 yards, 1 touchdown. In terms of his placement, obviously he was first in rushing yards. He was tied first in rushing touchdowns. Do you know who the other one is?
I'm gonna go with whoever Notre Dame's running back is.
Notre Dame's running back, okay. Lucas?
What was the stat again?
It was 29 rushing touchdowns, and he was tied for first with somebody else. Do you think who could have been? You don't need to give me a name. Just give
this the other day.
Yeah, you did.
Who has that many?
You just give me a team and a position. If you don't know,
I'm completely blanking. I'm trying to think who it is. Once you say it's going to be so obvious,
it's really not obvious. It's not it's not what you're expecting. Yeah. If you don't know, just say it.
Just go ahead, man.
So it's not a running back. It's a quarterback.
That had 29 rushing touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's Riley Leonard.
It's not Jalen Milroe, is it?
It's not.
It can't be Riley Leonard.
It's the quarterback of one of the greatest military mights in our entire history. The university, not even a university. It's Army. It's Bryson Daly, the quarterback.
Oh my god! You're right.
Are you kidding?
I saw it while I was watching the game.
That is. Listen, I love watching Army, Navy, and Air Force play football because it's so old school and it's so beautiful at the same time. Army, Navy, one of my favorite games of the year.
Mm-hmm.
It almost like sometimes you just have to think about which teams run the ball the most.
That's Army, and it was Navy not too long ago as well.
By the way, did you guys watch the American Championship game and you saw like Army's field? They're doing like construction behind it. It's like really weird to watch a football game be played there.
I did not watch it. I was most likely at
I
work,
did not watch that
unfortunately.
one.
It goes to show you what I do
I mean,
on a Friday
Vanderbilt did the
night, I
same
guess.
thing. Vanderbilt did their stadium thing last season, right? Or
Hmm.
that finished this season.
I think it
There
finishes
was a
this.
little, there was a little bit because when I watched the end of the Vanderbilt Alabama game, I looked like there was some construction behind one of the end zones.
Yep.
So, and just going into it one more, a common thing that a lot of people pose against Ashton Genty is that he only played bad teams. And a common thing that I always bring up is his stats against Oregon: 25 carries, 192 yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean, and you know what? I'll even counterpoint my own claim right there. Nobody knew who Genty was, and he completely shocked Oregon. Nobody would have expected it. But that also goes, and like Lucas said, 13th best defense in the nation. And he ran for almost 200 yards and 3 scores.
And they
I do also have an interesting stat. So the average rushing yards allowed ranking of Boise State's FBS opponents was 90th. Do you think that might be a bad thing for Ashton Genty? But if you look at Colorado with Travis Hunter, the average passing yards allowed ranking of the FBS opponents is also 90th. So you can't use it
Ooh,
against either of them.
How about
wow.
that?
That's a null stat right there. That
is incredible research right there. I commend you for that, Lucas.
So, yeah, I mean, Lucas, that's a fantastic stat. I mean, 90th in rushing, 90th in passing allowing. I mean, there's 136 FBS teams, and to have that stat line up perfectly like that, I mean,
It's the
that's
bottom tier, almost to the bottom tier of the bottom tier. That's like FSU tier, almost.
well, FSU tier is definitely like 131st, but yeah. Um,
Goes to show you how close we knew this Heisman race was going to be between
Exactly.
Travis Hunter and Ashton Genty. And I think the thing for me is I could make a case for both. It's
100%.
just, and I think it's just who your personal preference is based on, Lucas, what you mentioned.
No, exactly. And the thing is that
I think this one, the narrative really took over of like being the first 5-star, talk about Travis Hunter, of course, to commit to an FCS and HBCU, and then turn around Colorado from 1-11 to 9-3. And play both positions at an insane, almost like best at each one level. It's just like, but you can also say the same thing for Ashton Genty, the 4-star recruit of no major program offers, single-handedly carries this team to CFP with a first-round bye. Like, I don't think almost anyone would have predicted that at the beginning of the season.
no, not at all. I mean, even with the final games of Boise State, people were already counting them out, saying that, oh, they shouldn't make a first-round bye. Oh, they should be number 5 or number 6. They should be right outside and have to fight for their way in. But then when you see the rest of these teams collapsing right at the end, right when it's most important, yeah, you're going to have to put Boise State in at number, 3, I believe is where they put them at.
Yeah, they're seeded number 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't wait to see what they do in the playoff because if you know anything about Boise State, as you guys I'm sure do, they have been a consistently good program now for almost 20 years. I mean, you could argue that, I mean, I went to Cincinnati and when I was there and the Bearcats got really good, ultimately going to the college football playoff in 2021, Bearcat fans, Bearcat students, alumni would argue that they were the best mid-major at the time, even though I always thought they were a major program, mid-major program at the time. But you look at what Boise State has done for the better part of 20 years. It's remarkable. And they
the
have
BCS Buster era. Remember that? All that stuff?
Yeah, I remember when they beat Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl. I remember when they beat TCU in the also in the Fiesta Bowl, I believe. That was back when Andy Dalton and Kellen Moore were going at it. So
that's a legendary matchup right there.
Talk about, I mean, yeah. Well, heck, Kellen Moore's doing pretty well as an offensive coordinator, I will say. And Andy Dalton had a decent career. Let's not be too sarcastic with that one.
No, I wasn't even being sarcastic. At a collegiate level, I mean that's a generational matchup right there. And even in the NFL, I mean they're both successful. I mean Kellen Moore is a great offensive coordinator, and Andy Dalton, you know what, the last couple of years haven't been great, but he's an above average journeyman quarterback that we saw over the last 10, how long now? But 13 years he's been in the league.
Been in the league. This is his 14th season in the league.
14. There you go.
And he played his first 9 with the Bengals, and the first 5 seasons he took the Bengals to the playoffs.
No, exactly. That's a completely fair point. I mean, you're a Bengals fan. You know better than anybody. So
he was getting MVP conversation in 2015. I'll put it to you that way.
There you go. So let me pose a small thing to you guys here, okay? So Ashton Genty played 13 games, right? He played in every single game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What if I told you that he was sat for 8 quarters because of how bad Boise State was beating other teams?
That is
So what
true.
you're saying,
He did
what
only
you're
play
saying
halves.
so what you're saying is his numbers could be even better.
His numbers could have been a lot better. So,
He could have been a demon. Holy crap.
so let's look at it that way.
He still is
So
a demon.
he played 13 games. If you take out the 8 quarters, that's 2 whole games right there. He played essentially 11 full games, and he was 161, give or take a couple of yards. I know it's in the 160 ballpark, away from beating the NCAA record, as well as having 29 touchdowns. And he essentially only played 11 full games.
To me, then that only strengthens my argument for Travis Hunter.
Really?
Really?
It does.
I think it would hurt you.
No, I can play both sides of this, but
Okay.
to me,
Mhm.
I'm gonna play to where I'm saying my vote's for Travis Hunter because Boise State playing in the Mountain West doesn't give them the opportunity to play in bowl games that are being decided in the fourth quarter. If you watched Colorado this season, which I'm sure a lot of us did because they were on national television almost every week.
Mm-hmm.
They were in a lot of close games, so you saw Travis Hunter's ability to be effective on snap 130 plus, however many he played in a particular game. So because Boise State was blowing teams out, you probably turned the game off, or you probably were watching another game and didn't even care to turn on the Boise State game if you wanted to watch Ashton Jenny. So what you're
True.
telling me, Alex, only strengthens my argument for Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter had to play 130 plus snaps because Colorado wasn't playing in the Big 12, which you can say is probably the fourth best conference of the Power Four, and that's fine. I actually would agree with you on that. But I I think of the ACC was good this season. You look at what
It
Clemson,
was better. It was better than most people expected.
Georgia Tech was really good. Miami was really good. Syracuse had a decent season. How about Kyle McCord, big winners in
Mm-hmm.
the last week of the regular season, which Ohio State could have kept him potentially. Um, but when I look at the fact that Travis Hunter had to play that many snaps because Colorado was in dogfights with Kansas State, Kansas, Cincinnati, even. That's to me, Travis Hunter had to play as many snaps as he did as a two-way
Mhm.
player. He did. He was prolific. He was elite. That's why he got my Heisman vote. And what you told me about Ashton Jenny only strengthens my argument.
You know what? That's a
That is true.
very
And also take into account that Travis Hunter is also under double coverage almost that entire time.
that is true. Typically, he is underneath a cornerback and then a safety, kind of spying from a distance if he's not actively being double covered by two corners. So,
And the Big 12 has some good receivers that he also had to cover 60 times a game.
which is fair. Yes, absolutely. I think those are all good points as well. And you know what, Frankie? Yeah, you turned my point. You turned it on its side. I think that's a good point. But what I'm about to tell you in a few minutes, I think that argument that you just had is going to apply to the same thing as Travis Hunter in respect, and you'll see why. So let's go into Travis Hunter's stats. All right. 92 catches, 1,152 yards, 12 and a half yards per catch, 14 touchdowns. He had 2 rush attempts for 5 yards and a touchdown. He had 31 total tackles on defense, 20 by himself, 11 were assisted, 11 passes deflected, 1 forced fumbled, and four interceptions. If that is a single player stat, if you are just a cornerback and that's your stat line, hey, you had a pretty good season. I mean, that's not bad.
Yeah, you're up for the Jim Thorpe Award if you have those numbers.
Exactly. And that's on any team. If you're Alabama, if you're North Texas, if you're South Dakota State University,
The
you're
Jackrabbits.
yeah, exactly. That's top 20, top 15 cornerback right there. However, again, we're looking at it from this point of view. Ashton Jenny was first in rushing yards, tied first in rushing touchdowns. He had the most number of running carries, obviously. Travis Hunter was sixth in receiving yards. He was second in receiving touchdowns. Again, sixth is not bad. That's fantastic. Second in receiving touchdowns, that's still not bad. However, Travis Hunter had his fair share of scores late in the fourth quarter when they are already beating the crap out of other teams. You can make a claim that Travis Hunter was stat padding just as much as Ashton Jeanty was, to the point that they had to remove him. There is a 5-yard rushing touchdown that Colorado, Travis Hunter, had with 2 minutes and 22 seconds remaining in the fourth quarter when they were already beating Utah 42-24. They went ahead to obviously win that game 49-24.
And the beatdown of Oklahoma State too.
And
So that was,
that was a
did they get shut out?
massacre.
and that was
That was bad.
exactly what I was to bring up, Lucas. That's a great
And that
point.
was Black Friday indeed.
Yes, with 11 minutes left in the fourth quarter, already beating Oklahoma State 45-0. What does Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter do? They connect for another touchdown. You were already beating them late in the game. You could have safely pulled them out, put in the backups. Not saying that that makes any sense. Obviously, you want to have your players do that. But when that is your last regular season game, at that time, they were already going to miss the Big 12 championship game. They were already going to finish, 9-3 at best. No hopes of making the playoffs. You're going to have a great bowl game. So what are you going to do? You know what? You have a guy that's about to win the Heisman. He's in contention. You have a 50-50 coin flip right there that he's going to win. What are you going to do? Yeah, you're going to give him the ball. You're going to have him score another touchdown. You're going to have him get those extra yards. You're going to keep him on the field because that's what you want. If you're not going to make the playoffs, if you're not going to make your championship game, you're going to have your supposed Heisman winner to get more points so that Colorado has that claim to fame. Colorado only had one other player win the Heisman. That was back in the 90s. Couldn't even tell you who it is. So, of course,
God rest his soul, Rashawn Salam.
Thank you. So, of course, when you have nothing to lose and you have only something to gain, yeah, you're going to want that Heisman push. Like I said, no playoff hopes, no championship game hopes. You know what? You're making a bowl game. You're just not going to make one that matters. So, of course, you're going to keep feeding your Heisman player late in the fourth quarter when you're already beating Oklahoma State, 3-9 Oklahoma State, 45-0. Mind you, that was just the fourth quarter score. I believe Travis Hunter went on to score beforehand earlier in the game when they were already up by 20 plus.
But this just shows you why college football is so great, because the Heisman Trophy is the most prestigious award in all of college football. And even when you really don't have, as you're saying, Alex, anything to play for, you're still playing for something.
Agreed.
And that shows you the passion, the pride that there is within college football. And let's not forget, and I think you were alluding to this, that was Shedeur and Travis's likely last game in Boulder.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
You can perceive it as their stat padding. You can perceive it as, I perceive it as, they just wanted to, go out with a bang. They wanted to, they're up 45-0. They had nothing to lose. They might as well go for another score. Again, it's just all about how you perceive it. And it just goes to show you the great place that college football is in. Look at the Heisman race this season. You could argue it was the best Heisman race since when? 1997, when you had Peyton Manning and Charles Woodson in it?
Most likely then.
There was a great race between Mark Ingram and Toby Gerhart in 2009. Andrew Luck was in some great races. Remember with RG3 famously in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
You also had 2016 with not 2016. I'm thinking of it. Even last year, you didn't really know who was going to win it. If it was going to be Jaden Daniels, if it was going to be Bo Nix, if it was going to be, I forget who else was up for the Heisman last year. But the point I'm making is, I think Penix was up for the Heisman.
Yes, it was and
yep.
McCarthy.
AJ McCarthy, was he there?
Who ultimately won the national championship. So
yes, I believe I believe the big four, it was Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix Jr., and McCarthy. But I also think there was a running back.
So the only quarterback to not be in the college football playoff ended up winning the Heisman.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
The last 2 years now, the last 3 years, the player that's won the Heisman wasn't in the college football playoff.
It just shows the story that you have is so important to the Heisman. You can get bogged down in so many stats, but I think obviously the stats and everything surrounding the stats is what makes the Heisman.
Yeah, I'll add to that, Lucas. Like when Joe Burrow won the Heisman in 2019, it wasn't just that he was an unbelievable player. I mean, his stats, if you look up his numbers, they're otherworldly.
Oh no, we know Joe Burrow's 2019 stats. I mean, it's one of the greatest Heisman performances ever recorded.
Oh, no question. Here's the thing. It was still up in the air when they played Alabama in early November. It was between him and Tua Tagovailoa, but Burrow beats him in Tuscaloosa, 31 of 39 for 393 and 3 touchdowns. Oh, and by the way, the next week then he throws for 500 yards, however many it was. So he kept getting better after that game. Mm-hmm. But the other thing to what Lucas, you said, it's the player story. Joe Burrow had a great story. He went to Ohio State. He's from Ohio. goes to Ohio State, battles through injuries, doesn't get a lot of playing time, transfers to LSU. First season wasn't really as prolific. He was good. I mean, if you watch his highlights, he was
It was
good.
a solid season, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. They were really good that year. And then 2019 comes around, and the story is Joe Brady, LSU's offensive coordinator, co-offensive coordinator with Steve Ensminger. They realized, well, we have Jamar Chase. Look what he's become. We have Justin Jefferson. Look what he's become.
Well, I love Jamar Chase, baby.
Yeah,
By the way,
Lucas
those
fantasy
three
football.
players have all earned second contracts in the NFL. So that tells you how good that LSU team was. And they said, okay, we're going to throw the ball 40 times a game. Yeah, look what that did.
Yeah.
And then the story,
Torched everybody.
yes, and then the story of Burrow and giving all that, raising all that money for hunger and food insecurity in Athens. So it's that story. It's the transfer. It's betting on yourself and reinventing yourself, being a graduate transfer, and focusing on football. I mean that to your point, it's not just about the 5-star recruit, coming out of high school and being highly touted like Travis Hunter. It's a guy like Joe Burrow who worked his way up to being great. It's a guy like Devontae Smith even. And guys, I don't know if you remember, Devontae Smith wasn't really a household name until he caught the game-winning touchdown against Georgia in the national championship. And then he exploded in 2020 with like 23 touchdowns or something like that. To put it in perspective, the NFL record for touchdowns in a season is 23. Who holds it? Quick trivia question.
Isn't it Randy Moss?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Our thoughts and prayers are with the great Randy Moss as he battles cancer, which he's in very good hands. Justin Jefferson had that incredible shout out to him as he was doing the gritty on Monday Night Football this past week when he scored a touchdown. So
yes, he was. Yes, he did. Yes, he
it
did.
just goes to show you. But it just goes to show you, to what Lucas you said, it is about the story that matters, and that's why college football is so great. Even people thought conference realignment would ruin the sport. No, it hasn't.
I would love more regionality, but I think the side note is just like the realignment everything has definitely made these big time matchups so much more ingrained with like the fabric of the sport.
You had
so much more impactful week by week.
You had multiple big time matchups per week, and that's the thing.
I will say conference realignment, I was one of the first people to say that I thought it was a horrible thing. I thought realignment was going to destroy college football. I thought it was going to, it was all about the money. And I'm glad that I was wrong. I think college football is better than what it was, obviously excluding NIL and the transfer portal and how toxic transfer portal is now. But I think conference realignment, the unfortunate death of the Pac-12, I think has really helped revitalize a lot of what college football was about. The big games, the heavy hits, the crowd swaying games, and you know what? I think Boise State should join the Pac-12. I think they should join the initiative. If they have,
they already are.
They already are. Exactly.
They already are.
If they haven't already.
They're part of the rebranded Pac-12.
Thank God.
It'll be an interesting story of just like seeing of like this like kind of power four, but also not power four, but not group of five. It's gonna be a nice in between. If they can really make that work, it'll be interesting to see how we view it the next couple of years.
And to Alex's point about the Pac-12, look, it was unfortunate because a lot of us loved watching Pac-12 after dark on a Saturday night. A lot of us loved watching because the Pac-12 did have some unbelievably nice campuses. Alex, you live out there in Bear Down territory in near Arizona State, Forks Up. So when I think about the Pac-12, and yes, it was sad what happened. All they had to do was negotiate a new TV deal, and they'd be fine, right? Well, they didn't. Look what happened. But the one thing that college football has lost is its purity. It's a sport that is seeped in tradition. It's a sport that's seeped in its history. I mean, the history of the sport is woven into the fabric of this country, if you think about it. And it's also a lot of the great rivalries, like Bedlam is not played now every year, which sucks. I loved watching Bedlam. Or you look at a rival. I mean, look at what's another rivalry that has kind of gone by the wayside with conference realignment. My point to you is the purity.
Oregon versus Oregon State was on the ropes for a second.
Yeah, I did
my dad went to Oregon State, so I'm like, I want to be in this, but like they definitely got to go for the next few years. But it's definitely those treasured things that are going to be falling apart.
I loved the Civil War. I mean, there were some great games in that rivalry. You think about those rivalries that no longer exist. But at the same time, think about, again, the magnitude of games per week that are high in terms of magnitude.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't have had that when you had 5 Power 5 conferences. And again, it sucks for the Pac-12. For anybody who associated with the conference, its teams, the Pac-12 network, etc. But think about how great the sport was this season. Think about how great College Game Day was this year.
It was, oh, dude.
Insane.
Pat McAfee
electric.
has revitalized College Game Day.
Absolutely.
It makes me so happy.
Nick Saban is phenomenal on that show. I think Nick Saban's great on College Game Day. I don't know about you guys.
He's the best guy on there, hands down.
I love to see Nick Saban
100%.
just around all those high energy guys, and you just look at him and it's just like the anxious friend standing in the corner that is just checking their weather app on their phone.
Well, because Nick Saban's been there.
Yeah, no kidding.
Nick Saban's been there. And the other thing too is think about this. The night game at 7:30 on NBC every week was an SEC game, which I think you could have gotten tired of. I didn't.
Mm-mm.
Never.
No, I will say it's nice to see the SEC actually compete with other teams, and it's not an SEC takeover like what it has been in years prior. So, okay, quick sidebar. We're getting a little strained for time. I know that. I'm going to provide a couple stat lines of previous Heisman winners. All right, see how they stack up with a certain player by the name of Ashton Jeanty. 3 players, 3 Heisman winners, all running backs. 2015, 2009, 2005. 2015 was Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry had 339 rush attempts, 1,986 rushing yards, 5.9 yards per carry, 23 touchdowns, 10 catches, 97 yards with no touchdowns. The only stat, and let me double check before I continue with that thought. Yes, Derrick Henry was worse in every single metric than compared to Ashton Jeanty. He had less carries, less yards, less touchdowns, less yards per carry, less catches, and even like receiving yards. Yet Derrick Henry in 2015 won. Now then again, Derrick Henry is a bulldozer. We know that now. He's still a bulldozer on the Ravens. I really thought he was going to take a decrease and look at him. But
can you tell Todd Monken, the Ravens offensive coordinator, unlike the last time they played the Steelers, where Derrick Henry got 0 fourth quarter carries, to get a carry in the fourth quarter on Saturday?
They just need to just keep running the ball. I mean, that's.
Why'd you sign him if you're not using him in the fourth quarter and you're against your biggest rival, who, by the way, if you lose to this week, they win the division?
Which is very scary to look at. 2009, Mark Ingram, another Alabama guy, 271 rushing attempts, 1,658 rushing yards, 6.1 yards per carry, 17 touchdowns, 32 catches, 334 yards, and 3 touchdowns. The only stat line that is better than Jeanty is the receiving upside. And even then, it's by 22 catches, just over 200 yards, and 2 touchdowns. All-purpose yards. I'm sorry?
One of the most underrated running backs of the 2010s in the NFL, Mark Ingram.
Completely agree. But then again, Jeanty ran circles around Mark Ingram, and if you look at stats. So then, same thing, 2005, Reggie Bush, the famed who really won. Give him back his Heisman. He deserves it. 200.
Did he get it back?
He should. I don't think he officially got it back,
sure.
But now with NIL, he should have it back.
I could have sworn.
Can you imagine how much money Reggie Bush would have made had NIL been around in 2005?
I'd say any of these players would have won if it was around back then, or just at that
NIL
time.
is a crazy rabbit hole to go down.
Yes,
he would have made bank.
Yes, he would have
in college.
The detriment of the NIL will be discussed in another video. That's for sure. Reggie Bush 2005 had 200 rushing attempts, 1,740 rushing yards. 8.7 yards per carry on average with 16 touchdowns, 37 catches, 478 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The only thing really that's substantial compared to Jeanty is the yards per carry. 8.7 is enormous. Jeanty was 7.3, 7.4, which is still great, but being able to average an entire yard more per carry is enormous. But then again, still, the rushing yard stat, lower. The carries, lower. The touchdowns, lower. Everything like that. So when you compare
the fact that USC had all those mouths to feed a wide receiver,
that's
it. That team was loaded.
But then again, this is just looking, and of course, we can go into the story, we can go into the program, we can go into the history. That's a completely different story. Boise State, Boise State has been a powerhouse of the Power 5 for 20 years. They've been good. They have been good. But do they have the same prestige and the same media attention as a recent Deion Sanders-led Colorado team that is just attracting media as if he was the LeVar Ball and the Ball siblings of the NBA. Because that's exactly what I attribute Deion Sanders to. Colorado is an incredibly prestigious program because of Deion Sanders. Not saying that they weren't beforehand. They have plenty of good history. But Colorado has been a Power 5, now Power 4 team for a very long time. Boise State has been non-Power 5 for a very long time.
Mhm.
Well, this
So
just
with
goes
that,
to show. This just goes to show you, like, and I was talking about this with Anthony this past weekend. Like, when you have a program like Colorado that's been a Power 5 or Power 4 program for a long time, or North Carolina that's been a Power 5, Power 4 program for a long time, and you get a head coach with the caliber of a name like Deion Coach Prime Sanders or Bill Belichick, that can take you from being middle of the road or maybe, kind of lower in the power rankings to being up here. It gives you
exactly.
credibility. And I'll
Mhm.
say this: if Boise State goes on a deep playoff run this year, which I believe they can because of Ashton Jenny and because of their battle tested, they played Oregon. I think playing a close game in the Mountain West Championship too is going to benefit them, because if they do get into a four-quarter battle with a Boise State or SMU, but excuse me, I think if they go on a deep playoff run, they're going to get a lot. They're going to get a lot more attention. They should, because they've been really good for 20 years. Fun fact, in the first year of the 4-team playoff, they were the highest ranked Group of 5 champion playing in a New Year's Six bowl game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There
Sure.
you go. So,
They can hang with any of these guys. I'll tell you that.
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Honestly, I wouldn't
Hey,
be
by the way, you can put an asterisk by one of Reggie Bush's touchdowns from 2005 because he was pushed into the end zone on one of those.
good to know. Good to know.
Well,
So,
don't you know about the Bush push?
I have not seen anything of it.
Really?
Yeah.
I think I've heard like a whisper about it, but
Call me,
nothing
call
I'm
As
me,
someone who
particularly
grew up in
expert
Notre
on.
Dame fan, I remember that vividly.
call me uneducated because I have not seen it before. So I will now
Yeah.
be. I'm going to need to see it right after this. But anyway,
Maybe all the money that Mike Norvell donated to boosters, they can donate to,
Thank you, Mr. Norvell. Thank
you can
you.
take a course on great plays in college football history. And I
Mike,
mean,
no,
look, there's some probably that I don't even know. I'm
yeah.
not to put myself on a pedestal, but
No, I know you're right. I mean, there's a ton of plays in college football that a lot of people do or don't know about. But Mike Norvell's $4.5 million donation was not a hey, I'm going to give back to the boosters. It's a I'm going to give this money because FSU told me that I need to, or else I'm going to get fired. So that's the
which maybe
reason
he
why
should be.
he should kind of be fired. But anyway,
That's a whole other video,
that's
guys.
a whole other
Whew.
video. That's a
I
whole other
could I
video.
could I could talk for 3 hours about should Mike Norvell be fired or not.
So
I
with the
feel the same.
final,
I feel the same way about my head coach at Cincinnati, but I don't even know if people even know enough about him. So we're kind of suffering in silence over here in the Queen City. Hey, at least we have Joe Burrow. We're doing all right.
exactly. So with our final few
Are you doing
seconds,
all right?
we want to talk about our official top 5. Doesn't need to be anything specific. Just give me 5 names from ranking order 1 to 5 of who you think the Heisman voting should have been.
Well, for me, Travis Hunter at 1.
Okay.
Ashton Jenny 2. I'll say Dylan Gabriel 3.
Okay.
Wow, this is hard. Oh man, I'm gonna go. Wow, this is really hard. I underestimated how hard this was gonna be. Wow. I mean, here's the funny thing. Kyle McCord's numbers this year are
That's
actually
substantial.
really good.
They're substantial. I mean, yeah. Yeah, I think he was 10th in Heisman voting this year.
I mean, obviously, if we're talking the finalists, Cam Ward was 4th. I mean, there was a time when he was a serious contender.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, and we talked about this, if you lose games and you don't play well in them, like you're gonna fall off. I mean, that's the thing. The Heisman is an arms race, not literally, because quarterbacks don't win it every year, as we saw this year, but it is an arms race every single week. And if you have one bad game, it can make all the difference.
No, you're completely correct.
So I
Here,
haven't
just
mentioned my 5th. I haven't
let
mentioned my
me
5th.
let me give you a little bit of assistance, and I'll tell you who rounded out the top 10. If okay, so obviously it's Hunter, Genty, Gabriel, Ward, Scadaboo, Bryson Daly was actually 6th, the Army quarterback.
Yeah, that's good.
Penn State, Tyler Warren, the tight
Really?
end. Yes.
Huh, how about that?
Shador Sanders was 8th. Curtis Rourke was 9th, the Indiana quarterback that we referenced earlier. And Kyle McCord was 10th.
So that does make me feel better about Kyle McCord.
I mean, if you said Kyle McCord at 5, I don't think that's really too bad of a take. I think that's pretty reasonable.
You gotta feel happy for him. I mean, Syracuse was a really good team in the ACC this year.
It looked like a death sentence, and honestly, he turned it around and he actually made something of it. I think he's a viable option in the draft going into this year.
Syracuse has quietly had some really good seasons in this century.
Agreed. So, who are you officially putting at 5th then?
Either Kyle McCord or Shador Sanders.
Okay, I mean, that's a fair take. Lucas?
Shador
Can I do tie for 5th?
Yeah, you can do tied. Sure, why not?
Okay, I'll do that.
All right, Lucas?
Ashton Jennings gonna be number 1. I'll stick with my guy.
Mhm.
Number 2, Travis Hunter. I think everyone is the first 2 are pretty solid. That's where the debate is.
Mhm.
Number 3, Cam Ward.
Absolutely.
I think he got way too much trash for his Mario Cristobal's terrible defense. Number 4, we're gonna go Kyle McCord.
Wow, 4. Okay.
Just based on
Kyle McCord
I know
would
I'm
have
feeling
gone
it.
to New York City.
I know I'm feeling it just based on the storyline of disgrace from Ohio State, terrible versus against that that national championship Michigan team, and then he turns around, has some fantastic numbers at Syracuse under Fran Brown. He's showering. Did you guys see that with Fran Brown? Victors get to shower, something like that. And then number 5,
That's kind of weird. Okay.
he said that Fran Brown. He claimed after one of his really bad losses, I can't remember who it was to. He said he didn't shower because only victors get to shower.
Oh,
you can look it up.
I think I've heard of that before. I just didn't consider it because it seemed a little too fake.
Look, when I was in high school, I managed varsity basketball my sophomore year, and when we were on a 9-game winning streak to end the regular season, we didn't clean our practice jerseys. Now, I didn't have to worry about that, but the players did not clean their practice jerseys, which I found to be absolutely disgusting.
Yeah,
it is.
That's pretty rank. So, Lucas, I'm sorry, who's your 5th?
I'm going to go Dylan Gabriel. I think taking Oregon, obviously preseason number 3, he did what was expected of him. I think he's a solid quarterback. I'm a fan of his connection with Tez Johnson. So.
That's a very good thing. It's a good point. So
can I ask this question really quick to Lucas's point? Do you think Ohio State fans are concerned so much about beating Michigan and winning the national championship that they forget how good actually Kyle McCord was last year?
100%.
Absolutely.
I think Ryan Day's ineptitude to really match Michigan is really clouding their opinion of their quarterbacks.
I mean, look. Now, I'll be at the playoff game Saturday in Columbus, and I am very nervous for what's going to happen if Tennessee wins.
That would be funny. Oh, my God.
They'll fire him.
They would. Are you kidding? I bet Ohio State fans would probably rush the field and attack Ryan Day if they lose to Tennessee. That's probably how unreasonably angry they are.
If I'm Ryan Day, I'm serious about this. I have a contingency plan in place. I am telling my family, pets, everybody, you're staying in this hotel because if the worst happens, we're not coming back to our house tonight.
No.
You never know.
No, I mean, frankly,
I can only imagine that headline.
I mean, what was going on when Joe Burrow got drafted. I mean, there was reports of people going to his house when he got drafted. I mean, that's crazy.
that was for much happier reasons.
No, I agree, but that's what I mean. That just goes to show you how dedicated Ohio fans are in terms of their football. Is that they are more than willing to do that if that has to be the case. So if I'm Ryan Day, you know what? You're coaching via Zoom from the sidelines. You're having your family on an offshore oil rig with armed security, ready to go. And you know what? You have the dog. I'm being serious. I mean, you don't want to be anywhere near the stadium if you're Ryan Day. But anyway, my top 5 is pretty similar to Lucas's. I think there's just two changes because he said Kyle McCord at 4. So Genty, number 1, Travis Hunter 2, Cam Ward is 3, Dylan Gabriel at 4, and number 5, I have to go with the person that I referenced earlier on, UNC running back Omarion Hampton, who did not receive as much love as he deserved.
It's a great name.
I respect it.
So
Omarion Hampton. That's a good name.
he's late first round, early second round projected draft pick this year, and I fully believe he will be a monster in the league. But anyway,
I'm excited to see Ashton Genty in the league. I'll tell you that.
Dude, Ashton Genty, Travis Hunter rivalry game, wherever they play, it's going to feed families, guaranteed.
Absurd.
It will feed families. So, with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. This has been actually a very entertaining video. I think this has definitely been one of my favorites that we've done in a very, very, very long time. We're going to be posting more frequently, obviously. We're going to be trying getting out more videos. Now that we have Lucas, we have somebody else here to help us out make content. Frankie's back. I think Anthony's working right now, but he'll be back eventually.
Anthony's working his butt off.
There you go.
Working. All right, before we go, I feel like we need to make our picks for this weekend's first round college football playoff action.
Oh boy.
By the way, Notre Dame is playing a home game, not on NBC for the first time since 1990.
It seems sacrilegious, honestly.
Welcome, sacrilegious. Welcome to the realignment of college football. If you weren't already.
No kidding. Okay, give me 1 second. I couldn't even. Okay, so Indiana, Notre Dame.
Go ahead, Lucas.
I think this is where Indiana, the Cinderella run ends. I'm sorry.
Okay. Oh, Notre Dame. Okay.
Yeah, it ends 100%. Notre Dame, ever since that NIU loss, has been on a warpath. Their point differential, I forgot to calculate it for this video, but it's crazy. They're just blowing out most teams. So.
That's very fair. It's very fair. Frankie?
I'm going to take Notre Dame over Indiana. It's a phenomenal matchup. In a basketball crazed state like Indiana, and you get this matchup on a Friday night in December. I checked the weather forecast earlier today. It's supposed to be snowing and around 30 degrees. It's going to be an unbelievable atmosphere. If you ever get a chance to go to a game in Notre Dame, go. It's an incredible atmosphere. Campus is gorgeous. The fans are great. I mean, let's be honest. They do act a little, like they're above some other fan bases because they're Notre Dame. And I get that. It's Notre Dame. It's one of the most prestigious college football programs in America. So I'm going to take Notre Dame. Saturday, SMU, Penn State. I'm going to take Penn State. I think SMU does keep it close, but playing in Happy Valley in December, that's going to be an incredible environment. Give me Penn State. They actually played Oregon tough. That gave me a little confidence in Penn State.
I can completely understand that. I'm just going back. I'm also going to take Notre Dame for obvious reasons. You know what? I'm going to go against you, Frankie. I'm going to think SMU is going to beat Penn State for multiple reasons. One game against Oregon is not going to make me change my opinion of Drew Aller. I think he's still a below average quarterback for how good Penn State really should be. So, yeah, give me SMU.
It's going to be a good game. I mean, SMU has a really good – Kevin Jennings, their quarterback, is really good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also feeling SMU just for the ACC solidarity, but also that SMU is a gritty team. They play close. The only 2 losses that they had play close.
Yeah.
And
so, we keep talking about ACC. Let's go to the next ACC matchup. We have Clemson against Texas. And you know what? Let me start this off. I feel like I'm going to start burning in a second when I say this, but I don't trust Texas against good teams. Oh, God, this is going to hurt to say. Give me Clemson. Give me Klubnik, honestly.
I can see why you think that because I've seen Texas play Georgia twice, and they've been manhandled up front, and that is an issue. Unfortunately, I think Clemson's offensive line is not Georgia's offensive line. I think Clemson does keep this close because I like K. Klubnik a lot. He's gotten a lot better. They have a good running back in Phil Maffa. But to me, they're playing in Austin. Texas did keep it close last time with Georgia. I thought they matched up better with them. I'm going to take Texas in this game, but it wouldn't shock me if Clemson keeps this close into the fourth quarter.
Lucas?
I'm taking Texas.
Okay, fair enough.
I think they exert their will a lot more on teams, obviously barring Georgia.
No kidding.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely be close.
Fair enough. And then we got Tennessee, Ohio State.
By field goal.
Tennessee, Ohio State, I think is going to be the best college football matchup that we have of those 4 games. Let's start it off. Lucas, Tennessee, Ohio State.
I'm feeling Tennessee, baby. Nico, I can't pronounce his last name. I'm so sorry.
Imalava.
I'm a fan of Lava, something like that. But I'm a fan of what they can do. with the receivers. But I also don't the Tennessee fans. I've heard rumors that they have sold out 40% of the shoe on all those seating apps. So I think it might be closer to a home game than people expect.
That would be fun to see.
Ema Lava, cold. It's gonna be cold in Columbus Saturday night. Give me Ohio State.
Fair enough. I mean, yeah, that's the hometown team. That makes sense. But you know what? I mean, this is such a great game. I mean, genuinely. But you got to give me good old Rocky Top. Rocky Top,
yes, sir.
Tennessee. Nico Iamaleava is going to light up Ohio State. Not because Ohio State's bad, but because Iamaleava is finally going to be nice and warm in that cold game. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. This was a great video. We will see you guys next time.